we want to move forward here now on the show, and we're going to go to another sort of world-shaking story here, major story out of Brazil, and that is the conviction of former President Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil for fomenting a coup there, facing potentially a number of years in prison, sentenced to 27 years, you can see below me. And we are very, very honored to be joined as we continue the show by Rodrigo Durão, who is a journalist with Brasil de Fato. Rodrigo, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Nice to talk to you.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. And I want to start here by asking when, the way this has been described, I saw Carmen Lucia describe it this way, that Bolsonaro was really the leader of a criminal organization that was thinking to undermine democracy in Brazil really systematically. And I was hoping you could talk about this framing, because I think a lot of the other framing is that perhaps he was just sort of swept along by the enthusiasm of his supporters as opposed to being an active participant.
Well, this was a huge and long trial in which a huge amount of evidence was collected. So there was a lot of evidence that showed that Bolsonaro was not really caught by the moment. He was actually the mastermind, the leader of this criminal organization. That was he was responsible for both trying to overthrow the elected government and to target democratic institutions in Brazil. This investigation concluded that there were 37 clusters operating in this attempt, and Bolsonaro was involved in all of them. There was a cluster responsible for disinformation and electoral system attacks, another unit responsible for inciting military personnel to join the coup. There was a legal unit, an operational unit to support the coup actions. There was a parallel intelligence unit and also an operation unit for enforcement of coercive measures, including even trying to kill the elected president, Lula, and his vice president, and also a minister of the High Court. So Bolsonaro was involved in all of them. So it was proved by the court that he was the leader of this organization.
And, with regard to all that, the minister emphasized that the attempted coup was not spontaneous, but part of this long prepared strategy, right? So what evidence has come out about the planning and coordinating specifically behind the January 8th attack, and who else within the government is implicated?
Tons of evidence, a huge amount. Because these guys were not really that smart, to be honest. They recorded evidence against themselves in live broadcast to their audience. So there was a lot of video and even written documents that were used against them. The court concluded that the plan began to be put in practice by July 2021, with attacks on electronic voting machines, and it lasted up until January the 8th, 2023, after losing the elections. The elections took place in October 2022. So the culmination was January the 8th, 2023. Other evidence were the use of the Attorney General's office to disregard court orders, illegal monitoring using the intelligence agency. There was also the use of the Federal Highway Police to prevent voters to disrupt voting in locations where the then candidate Lula had the most votes. So there were locations where Lula was really popular. The voters could not reach, or there was an attempt to prevent these voters to reach the places where they could vote for the second round, and delay the Ministry of Defense report, which found no fraud at the polls. Bolsonaro spent years saying that the electronic machines were not reliable. There could be a fraud, but investigations showed that there was no fraud. He also went public in rallies attended by thousands, posing public threats to High Court Minister Justice Alexandre Moraes, which was the one of the involved in this trial. He said the minister had to go. He threatened the minister. There was also a ministerial meeting on July 5th, 2022, in which Bolsonaro and his ministers, they discussed actions to be taken against the electoral court. So all of this are examples of confessions that were made by Bolsonaro that were included in this process. So I repeat, there were thousands, tons of this sort of evidence. Oh, you ask also who else is involved, was convicted, right? Well, there were at least seven other high-ranked members of Bolsonaro's inner circle that were convicted. Bolsonaro was convicted. He got the largest sentence. He was sentenced to 27 years of prison. The others were sentenced to slightly smaller sentences. For example, the former intelligence chief was accused of spreading false claims about election fraud. A retired admiral and former Navy chief, he supported the coup plan and helped draft the coup documents, the coup plans themselves. The former Minister of Justice, he was convicted of enabling the January 8th, 2023 attacks, obstructing the vote in 2022. And another retired Army general and former National Security Advisor, a big name in Brazil, General Augusto Heleno, he helped Bolsonaro craft his anti-democratic rhetoric. So there was a lot of important people, huge names in Brazil, military. We don't have a tradition of putting military behind bars, but it happened. So it was really important this time.
Well, and to pick up on that, I mean, I wonder overall, I mean, how historic is this verdict for Brazilian democracy, and what message do you think Brazil is sending the world by acting in this way?
Very much. It was groundbreaking for us here in Brazil. This is the first time we put 4-star generals behind bars for a coup d'état. You have to keep in mind that Brazil is a country that has a long, huge tradition of coup d'état, military coups. So this is the first time they actually pay for their crimes. And also the first time a president is also convicted by attempting to remain in power in disregard to the polls. One thing that was said during this trial is that people are not convicted for overthrowing governments. People are convicted for trying to overthrow governments, because when they succeed, they are never judged. They're never put on trial. So they only were put on trial because they tried and they failed. So it was very much a historical moment in Brazil. And in regards to be a symbol to the rest of the world, it's important to think that right now we have the president of the most important nation in the world doing whatever he wants, doing with no unleashed, to say the least. So bullying everyone. So I hope that we in Brazil, we hope that this could be followed by other more powerful nations to stand, to not give in to pressure. But you also have to keep in mind that what happened was the result of the resolve of just a few people in the High Court that decided not to give in to pressure, huge pressure from the United States. They used to call us Brazil. The Americans used to call us their backyard, and they act like that. They do whatever they want historically, but not this time. This time, Trump, you have to remember that Trump said that Bolsonaro was a political victim. He was unfairly being persecuted by a left-wing government. And despite of this, the huge amount of proof, the huge amount of evidence that I just mentioned, Trump decided to apply the highest tariffs, commercial tariffs in the world to Brazil because of that. And even though it all happened, Brazil didn't give in. The high court members didn't give in to this blackmail, and the Brazilian public understood it was just a blackmail from a far-right president trying to save his friend, to save another far-right politicians in the world. And so far, so good. It worked, and I do hope it will serve an example to other more powerful countries.
You know, all that said, Bolsonaro still commands a pretty loyal base and some support within Congress. So, how might this conviction and then the possible sentencing reshape Brazil's political landscape heading into future elections?
One thing seems to be everything is very abstract. Things are not very clear at the moment here in Brazil. We don't know how he's going to be sent, how he's going to serve his time. If he's going to be arrested at home. He's 72. He's old. He's entitled to be home arrested. But one thing seems to be clear: he will not be the leader of the far right next year when we have presidential elections. So the race right now within the right-wing ranks is to see who will be his heir, who will get the spoils of his popularity. So there is a huge fight. These guys, the right-wing politicians, they love to fight among themselves. So it's been a funny thing to watch. And polls shows that he has his support is shrinking. 10% in the last month, in the last 30 days, his support as a politician shrinked by 10 points, which is quite a lot. So right now the Congress is discussing a possibility of an amnesty, not a total amnesty, not to give a pardon for his crimes, but to reduce the sentences. For example, one of the plans in discussion is to reduce his sentence from 27 years to 21 years, and also the people involved in the riots of January 8th, 2023, because the opposition argue that many of the sentenced, they were just simple people that were caught by the moment. They didn't know what they're doing. They just thought that was a good idea to go there and to destroy some part of some government buildings and so on. And they got really huge sentence for that, 15, 16 years behind bars. So this is being discussed. And we will see if it will succeed. But the fact is that right now the Congress, everybody's looking for themselves. The right wing is trying to profit as much as they can against the government, Lula's government. So this amnesty theme is also a form of negotiation and get advantages in another areas. So we will see what happens.
Well, Rodrigo, we really appreciate you, and certainly Brasil de Fato, the excellent work you've done to inform us all around the world about the everyday happenings with this trial and everything going on in Brazil. And you are, of course, a journalist there at Brasil de Fato. Rodrigo Durão, thank you so much for joining us here on the Freedom Side.
My pleasure. Hope to talk to you soon.